Welcome to Scary Ghost Stories. In today's video, we will be delving into Britain's most haunted castle. Chillingham Castle has a chilling past, full of unsolved mysteries and inexplicable, often terrifying, encounters. Join us as we explore its many secrets, uncover the mysteries that have haunted this castle since the Middle Ages. Get ready for thrilling adventures and spine-tingling ghost stories, as we explore all the unique features that make Chillingham Castle the most haunted castle in the UK. Chillingham Castle was built in the 13th century, and has a long and varied history. It was initially built as a defensive fortress to protect against Scottish invaders during the Wars of Scottish Independence. In the 14th and 15th centuries, it was a royal residence for King Edward I and King Edward II, and later served as a family home for the Grey family. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the castle was owned by the Earls of Tankerville, who made significant renovations to the property, including the addition of a stately home and landscaped gardens. The castle remained in the Tankerville family until the 20th century, when it was sold to private owners. During World War II, Chillingham Castle was used as a military hospital, after which it fell into disrepair. It was eventually restored and opened to the public as a tourist attraction in the late 20th century. Today, the castle is privately owned and operates as a hotel and event venue, offering visitors the chance to experience its rich history and atmosphere for themselves. The torture room at Chillingham Castle is a chamber that was reportedly used for interrogating and punishing prisoners during the medieval period. The room is located in the castle's dungeons and contains a number of instruments of torture, such as manacles, chains, and a rack. These instruments are now displayed as historical artifacts and are not believed to have been used for actual torture in modern times. Visitors to the castle can take a tour of the torture room, as well as the rest of the castle's dungeons and historic rooms. The tour provides a fascinating glimpse into the castle's past and the ways in which prisoners were treated in medieval times. However, it is worth noting that the historical accuracy of the torture room and its artifacts has been called into question by some historians, and the room should be viewed as a representation of medieval life rather than an exact historical record. Chillingham Castle is known for its ghostly legends and reputedly haunted rooms, making it a popular destination for ghost hunters and those interested in the paranormal. Some of the most famous ghostly legends associated with the castle include the Blue Boy. This ghost is said to haunt one of the castle's bedrooms and is reputedly the ghost of a young prince who was murdered by his nurse. Visitors have reported seeing a blue light and hearing unexplained footsteps in the room. The Radiant Boy. This ghost is said to haunt the castle's chapel and is reputedly the ghost of a young boy who died of exposure after being locked in the chapel overnight. Visitors have reported seeing a ghostly figure and feeling a sense of unease in the chapel. The Wild Hunt. This ghostly procession is said to haunt the castle's grounds and is reputedly led by a headless huntsman. Visitors have reported hearing the sounds of horses and hunting horns in the castle's park. The White Pantry Ghost. This ghost is said to haunt the castle's pantry and is reputedly the ghost of a servant who was murdered in the room. Visitors have reported seeing a ghostly figure and feeling a sense of unease in the pantry. The Haunted Library. This room in the castle is said to be haunted by the ghost of a former resident who was an avid reader. Visitors have reported seeing books moving on their own and feeling a sense of unease in the library. The Grey Lady. This ghost is said to haunt the castle's halls and is reputed to be the ghost of a former resident who was married against her will. Visitors have reported seeing a ghostly figure and feeling a sense of sadness in the halls. The Drummer. This ghost is said to haunt the castle's towers and is reputed to be the ghost of a soldier who died while on guard duty. Visitors have reported hearing the sound of drumming and feeling a sense of unease in the towers. The Dragged Chain Ghost is a famous legend associated with Chillingham Castle. According to the story, the ghost is that of a prisoner who was kept captive in the castle and had his ankles chained together, preventing him from escaping. Visitors to the castle have reported hearing the sound of dragging chains coming from one of the rooms in the castle, which is said to be the room where the prisoner was kept. There have been numerous eyewitness accounts from visitors and staff at the castle who claim to have experienced the ghostly sounds of dragging chains. Some have reported hearing the sound of chains being dragged across the floor, while others have reported hearing the ghostly sound of a prisoner's shackles. Some visitors have even reported feeling a strong presence in the room and sensing a feeling of unease. The Screaming Lady is another famous ghostly legend associated with Chillingham Castle. According to the story, the ghost is that of a woman who was locked in one of the castle's towers and died in terror. Visitors to the castle have reported hearing the ghostly sounds of a woman screaming, especially in the vicinity of the tower where she was reportedly kept. There have been several eyewitness accounts from visitors and staff at the castle who claim to have heard the ghostly screams of the screaming lady. Some have reported hearing the sound of a woman screaming in terror, while others have reported hearing a blood-curdling scream that seems to come from nowhere. Some visitors have even reported feeling a strong presence in the area and sensing a feeling of unease. Here is an eyewitness account from somebody who claims to have encountered the screaming lady. I was part of a group of friends who decided to explore the infamous Chillingham Castle on a cold, dark night. The castle was known for its haunted history and we were eager to see if we could spot any ghostly apparitions. As we made our way through the castle's dungeons, which were said to be one of the most haunted parts of the castle, we suddenly heard a blood-curdling scream. We followed the sound and came across a ghostly figure of a young woman in a flowing white dress, standing in the corner of one of the dungeon cells. I was struck by the woman's appearance. She was dressed in a long, white gown that flowed behind her as if caught in a gentle breeze. Her face was contorted in a look of terror and her screams were growing louder and more intense. Despite our fear, we approached the figure, unable to look away. As we got closer, I noticed that the ghostly figure's face was a mask of pure terror, and her screams were echoing through the castle's halls. Suddenly, without warning, the figure disappeared, leaving us stunned and frightened. We searched the dungeons, but found no other evidence of the ghostly figure. Another ghost that is said to haunt the castle is the ghost of a nursemaid. The story of the nursemaid at Chillingham Castle is a fascinating one that has been passed down through generations of local residents. According to legend, the nursemaid was hired to take care of the children of the wealthy family who lived in the castle. She was a kind and gentle woman, and the children loved her very much. However, one day, one of the children became jealous of all the attention that the nursemaid was receiving, and in a fit of rage, murdered her. The nursemaid's ghost is said to have haunted the castle ever since. Many people claim to have seen her ghostly figure wandering the halls of the castle, especially in the rooms where the children used to sleep. Her ghost is said to be dressed in a white dress, with a bonnet covering her head, and a rosary beads in her hand. Some people have reported hearing her singing nursery rhymes to the children, as she did in life. One of the most famous accounts of the nursemaid's ghost is that of a visitor to the castle who claimed to have seen her ghostly figure standing at the end of his bed. The visitor was so frightened by the experience that he immediately left the castle and never returned. Despite the many tales of the nursemaid's ghost, there is no solid evidence to prove that she actually exists. However, the story has captured the imagination of many people, and Chillingham Castle has become one of the most famous haunted castles in England. Whether the nursemaid's ghost is real or just a product of folklore, her story remains an intriguing part of the castle's rich history. I'm about to tell you the story of a scene that took place at Chillingham Castle. It was the late 19th century and the castle was shrouded in mystery and legend. For centuries, rumors of ghostly apparitions and paranormal activity had circulated among the villagers. Many claimed to have seen the ghostly figures of former residents and soldiers, wandering the castle's halls and chambers. One evening, a group of paranormal enthusiasts decided to investigate these claims for themselves. They gathered in the castle's blue room, a dimly lit chamber filled with eerie shadows and a feeling of foreboding. The group was determined to make contact with the otherworldly beings said to haunt the castle. Using a Ouija board, the group began their scenes. At first, there was nothing, only the sound of their own breathing and the flickering of the candles. But suddenly, the planchette began to move on its own, spelling out words and answering the group's questions. To their surprise and shock, the ghostly entity claimed to be the spirit of a former resident of the castle, one who had lived there many centuries before. Over the course of the scenes, the ghost revealed details about its life and the events that took place at the castle. It spoke of battles and betrayals, of love and loss. The group was in awe as the ghostly apparition shared its tale, and they could feel the presence of the past all around them. When the seance was over, the group was left with a feeling of wonder and disbelief. They had made contact with a ghost, a true paranormal experience unlike anything they had ever encountered before. The story of their seance at Chillingham Castle spread quickly, and the castle became even more famous for its ghostly history. To this day, many still flock to the castle to try and experience the paranormal for themselves, in the hopes of making contact with the ghostly resident who still haunts its halls. If you are interested in visiting the castle, tourists and visitors can explore the castle and its grounds, including the medieval chapel, the battlements, and the Great Hall, which is said to be one of the most haunted rooms in the castle. Guided tours are available, and the knowledgeable guides will provide a detailed and fascinating account of the castle's history and the legends of its ghosts. In terms of pricing, the guided tours are priced at £11 per adult and £7 per child, and it's recommended to book in advance to secure your place. You can book by visiting the castle's official website, which I will link in the descriptions. In conclusion, Chillingham Castle is a must-visit for history and ghost hunting enthusiasts. With its rich heritage and spooky tales, this castle is sure to be an unforgettable experience. So why not book your tour today and see if you can experience the ghostly presence that is said to haunt Chillingham Castle? And thank you for watching Scary Ghost Stories.